Welcome to an English language lesson. For this lesson, we are doing the novel Dear Mr Kilmer. Before we begin, let's look at some suggestions for the candidates who are sitting for the SPM examination. So for novel, candidates must learn the details of the main or significant events in the novel so as to provide accurate and sufficient textual support. And candidates must be familiar with the plot, characters, and events of the story and do not reproduce memorized answers. So let's look at the trial paper from the year 2020, and this is from Penang. The following are the novels studied in the literature component in English language. So you have 3 novels here: Dear Mr Kilmer, Sing to the Dawn, and Captain Nobody. Choose any one of the novels above and answer the question below. In the novel you have read, choose a character who has a positive influence in your life. With close reference to the text, give reasons how he or she has influenced you. Now we are going to discuss how to write the answers. The question is a character who has a positive influence in your life. So definitely that character must have positive values or good moral values. You can write about one of these characters here. For example, you have Richard Knight, Hannah Shermer, and Mr Joyce Kilmer. So here are some positive values about these characters. So Richard Knight, he respects others, is responsible, brave, and kind. For Hannah Shermer, responsible, friendly. And for Mr Joyce Kilmer, brave, caring, encouraging. So now let's move on. The first model answer is for Richard Knight. This is the first paragraph, which is the introduction. So you can write, the novel that I read was Dear Mr Kilmer by Anne Schraff. The novel is about a farm boy, Richard Knight, who lived in Turtle Lake, Iowa. He was 15 years old and had an elder sister, Angie, and brother, Gus. The story evolved around Richard, who loved to write poetry, and his relationships with his family, Hannah Shermer, his classmates, and Mr Joyce Kilmer, a famous poet who joined the army during World War I. And in paragraph 2, you must give a positive value and also provide evidence. So let's look at the sample answer. Richard Knight has a positive influence in my life because he had many positive values. First of all, he shows that we need to respect others. When Mrs. Hanson, the English teacher, informed the class that the tavern owned by Hannah Shermer's family had been vandalized, and she bought a card for the class to sign as a show of sympathy, Richard was the only person who signed it. Many students felt it was not necessary to do so. A few wanted to sign but were afraid what the other students would say. Richard signed the card, although he knew that he would get into trouble with the bullies in the class. He even asked Mrs. Hanson whether he could deliver the card to the Shermers after school. Mrs. Hanson was proud of Richard having integrity and respecting others. So now moving on, paragraph 3. Remember that for this paragraph, you have to write the second reason and provide the evidence. Richard also influences me with his kindness as a friend. Mrs. Hanson announced that the class would be putting on a patriotic program to help sell Liberty bonds to help raise money for the war. In the program, a female student would be chosen to play Lady Liberty and a male student to play the part of Doughboy. They had to write an essay entitled How We Can Help the War Effort Right Here in Turtle Lake. A few days later, Richard was announced as the boy with the best essay, and Hannah won the role of Lady Liberty. Many students and parents were angry about Hannah's selection the day after. Hannah then declined the role as she was upset that her essay about peace had made people angry. Richard decided to quit his role too, as he wanted to show his support for his friend. And then moving on, paragraph 4, you have to write the third reason and provide an evidence. In addition, Richard was also a person who loved and cared for his family members. Richard realized that Angie, his elder sister, sacrificed a lot for his family. She took care of them after their mother died when he was 7. Richard often helped his sister in the kitchen after supper. When Richard got home from school, he did his chores, gathered the eggs, and pitched hay to the horses. During summer, Richard spent his days on the farm plowing, planting, and cultivating. He also took care of animals. He loved working with his father, despite Pa being a reserved father, and he was against Richard writing poetry. He expected Richard to outgrow writing poetry as he thought it was just a temporary interest. And then paragraph 5 will be the conclusion. You can write a simple conclusion such as, in a nutshell, an influential character is basically a role model for a person to follow. Richard Knight has many positive characteristics. He is kind, or you can write he was kind, caring, responsible, and respected others. Or you can write in present tense, okay? Respects others. I strive to use him as an example in whatever I do. Dear pupils, let's look at model answer 2. It is about Hannah Schirmer. This is the first paragraph, which is the introduction. So you can write, the novel that I read was Dear Mr Kilmer by Anne Schraff. The novel is about a farm boy, Richard Knight, who lived in Turtle Lake, Iowa. He was 15 years old and had an elder sister, Angie, and brother, Gus. The story evolved around Richard, who loved to write poetry, and his relationships with his family, Hannah Schirmer, his classmates, and Mr. Joyce Kilmer, a famous poet who joined the army during World War I. Now we are going to write paragraph 2. Remember that you have to write one positive value and also provide evidence. So Hannah Schirmer, Richard's classmate, has a positive influence in my life because she has many positive values. First of all, Hannah influences me with her kindness. Her parents' tavern was vandalized and Mrs. Hanson prepared a sympathy card for the students in her class to sign, but Richard was the only person who signed and even volunteered to send it to the Schirmers. Hannah, who looked upset, was not pleased to see Richard and rejected the card at first, but she reluctantly accepted it after Richard asked her to pass it to her parents. The next day, after being unkind to Richard, she apologized to him and praised him for being brave and kind. She was thankful there were neighbors who helped to paint over the awful words on the wall of the tavern. Paragraph 3. You're writing the second reason and also another evidence to support your answer. Hannah also shows that we have to be responsible and sensitive. Mrs. Hanson announced that the class would be putting on a patriotic program to help sell Liberty bonds to help raise money for the war. In the program, a female student will be chosen to play Lady Liberty and a male student to play the part of Doughboy. They had to write an essay entitled, How Can We Help the War Effort Right Here in Turtle Lake? Through her essay, Hannah voiced her opinion regarding the war. She said, peace must be made right in America. People must learn how to care for one another despite the differences. A few days later, Richard was announced as the boy with the best essay and Hannah won the role of Lady Liberty. Many students and parents were angry about Hannah's selection the day after. Hannah then declined the role as she did not want to upset the people in the town. For paragraph 4, we are writing another positive value, and remember that you have to support it with an evidence. So in addition, Hannah was also a patriotic person. She did not stop her brother from joining the American Expeditionary Forces as her brother was patriotic and he claimed it was the right thing to do. For paragraph 5, we are writing the conclusion. So you can write in a nutshell, an influential character is basically a role model for a person to follow. Hannah Schirmer has many positive characteristics: kind, responsible, and patriotic. I strive to use her as an example in whatever I do. Let's now look at model answer 3. So we are going to write about Mr. Joyce Kilmer. Again, for the introduction, you can use the same introduction as we discussed in the first model answer. The novel that I read was Dear Mr. Kilmer by Anne Schraff. The novel is about a farm boy, Richard Knight, who lived in Turtle Lake, Iowa. He was 15 years old and had an elder sister, Angie, and brother, Gus. The story evolves around Richard, who loved to write poetry, and his relationship with his family, Hannah Schirmer, his classmate, and Mr. Joyce Kilmer. a famous poet who joined the army during World War I. And then for paragraph 2, you have to write a reason and also an evidence. Mr. Joyce Kilmer has a positive influence in my life because he has many positive values. First of all, he shows that he was very brave. Mr. Kilmer was a famous poet who worked for the New York Times newspaper. He also published a book, Trees and Other Poems. He had volunteered to fight in the army. He admitted it was very hard to train to be a soldier. Although he was afraid, he had to overcome his fears. He believed in President Wilson's calling of the war to end wars. He volunteered to fight so young men would not need to fight and die in any more wars. For the second answer, which is in paragraph 3, remember that you have to provide an evidence. So you can write, Mr. Kilmer also influences me with his kind and caring nature. He replied Richard's letter, and then he advised Richard to share his poem with others. He also asked Richard to send him one of his poems that he had written. For the last reason, reason 3, it is in paragraph 4. In addition, Mr. Kilmer also gave Richard lots of encouragement. Mr. Kilmer signed his letter to Richard as your fellow poet. This shows he acknowledged Richard's ability to write poetry and could identify with him. Mr. Kilmer told Richard his poems were very fine and impressive. He encouraged him to continue writing as he might become a published verse maker in future. He claimed he enjoyed reading Richard's poems and letters. Now for the last paragraph, which is the conclusion. In a nutshell, an influential character is basically a role model for a person to follow. Mr. Kilmer has many positive characteristics, such as he was a kind, brave, and encouraging person. I strive to use him as an example in whatever I do. Dear pupils, we have come to the end of our lesson for today. Just now we look at how to write answers for Dear Mr. Kilmer. So remember to subscribe to my channel. It is called Educator OmniTube. And then best of luck for your coming SPM examination. Thank you. Signing off, I'm Madam Gan. Bye bye.